Hey everybody, Joel here. Welcome to the ToSalem Friday live show. If I'm a little um, different, it's because I want to talk today about something that I and a lot of people that I'm close to are all kind of going through simultaneously, oddly. And people who have, watched this channel and reached out to me and emailed and talked and stuff seem to be going through it too. So I think we should probably just talk about it. I don't really know a lot about astrology. Admittedly, it's never really grabbed me. Every time I try to get into it, it seems I don't know. It seems overly deterministic in a way that I find largely unappealing. That's probably because I just haven't found a good nuanced school of thought about it. But my read on it has always been that I don't, I'm not interested in any sort of uh, unconscious cosmic alignment as like a determining factor of my behavior. But that having been said, there are those out there right now who are making the claim that what we're currently going through is a kind of reckoning astrologically, a kind of painful birthing of a new age. And while I don't necessarily resonate with that a whole lot, or I didn't anyway, the past 2 weeks, almost everybody I know, including myself, who has anything resembling a daily spiritual practice, is going through some shit all at the same time. And I count myself pretty lucky that my version of that has actually been pretty positive, because some people I know, that's not the case at all. It seems like what might be happening is a forced reconciliation, or at the very least acknowledgement of the shadow. I'll talk a little bit about how that's playing out in me, and we'll do some tarot. I'm throwing out a lot of the live show stuff because I'm going to be honest with you. These past few weeks, I've really taken some time to think about this thing that I'm doing and the way that I'm doing it, and reflected a lot on the Lynn Lady, on this channel, on the website, and how I'm contributing to certain conversations, and whether or not I really want to contribute to those conversations, whether or not I really want to be of certain, hive minds, I guess. And so this stream today, I'm just kind of letting it all go, letting the whole affect go, letting the whole structure go, just letting it go, because frankly, I need to. I need to not be doing this for the sake of visibility or analytics. I need to do it because it's a place for me to be honest, and a place for me to hear you be honest, and for us to have serious, honest conversations about the metaphysical, the esoteric, and all the things that I hope ToSalem represents or comes to represent. So, dropping all the bullshit today. I hope you join in an equal spirit of drop all the bullshit and let's just talk. When I was 13 years old, I think 13 or 15, I always get those ages mixed up, I desperately wanted a drum kit. My mom is married to this dude who's a classically trained musician at the time. His name was Dave. And Dave used to play drums in a band in his younger years, a rock band. I totally agree, Lisa. We're going to talk a whole lot about that here in a bit. And I was really envious of Dave's drumming stories. Even just listening to him talk about playing the drums, I was like captivated 100%. And so for this birthday, I really, really wanted a drum set. But at that time, electronic kits were still pretty new. And they were wildly expensive. I remember going in my local music store and there was one for like $1,300. And we lived in apartments. So a normal kit, which you probably could have gotten like a cheap one for a few hundred, there's just no way it was happening. So instead of giving me that, they got me an electric guitar and an amp. Fine gift, right? Not what I wanted. But fine. I learned how to play it. I still do play on occasion. I learned how to sing and play. I was in a few bands doing that. I was in a few plays doing that. It was fine. But in the back of my mind ever since then, so like, somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 years now, I've always held this drum kit back there as like someday when I get to where I want to be, I'm going to give myself a drum kit. Just like I used to say, someday when I get to where I want to be, I'm going to have a whole wall of my home dedicated to masks because I've always loved masks. This past week, on a total lark, after a bunch of thinking and reading, some of which I'll talk about here in a second, I bought a drum kit. A really good one. I threw it on a credit card. I can't really afford it. I did it anyway. And probably a good 7 hours of the last 24 hours, I've just been playing drums. No agenda, no purpose, other than I just wanted to do it. Now I'm getting to where I'm memorizing patterns, and there's like it's an electronic kit, so it has little programs that you can do along with it. I'm doing some of those. I'm starting to pay attention to how I'm gripping the sticks. I'm focusing on songs that like are simple patterns but challenge your limb coordination, that sort of stuff. And I don't have any end game for playing the drums. I don't want to be in a band. I don't want to do it out in the world. It's just a super meditative thing. Something about the patterns, the constant focus, and the type of focus that I really, really enjoy. It took me 20 years to do that. There probably a good 7 or 8 of those years I couldn't have done it financially, but there's still 12 or so years, 12 or 13 years where I could have but didn't. Now I'm not saying that buying shit for yourself is like a pathway towards growth, but it might be reflective of something else that's happening. In my case, it certainly is. I don't know if you heard much about engrams or enneagrams. I'm not actually sure how you pronounce it, but I've been reading a lot about it lately, and was super resonating with one of the 9 engrams. They're basically personality types. But instead of like the Jungian thing, which most, at least of my friends are more into, which focuses on introversion and extroversion, this is more about how your childhood traumas implanted certain stories in your mind that have gone on to have impacts long past the relevant time. So I'm a 4, which means that I think the 4s are one of, if not the most emotional. They are kind of ruled by envy, a very specific kind. It can be just straight up like, I want stuff that others have. But my specific type, the thing that really resonated with me anyway, was this idea that 4s are envious of people who give themselves what they want and need in life, while simultaneously denying themselves, the 4, denying themselves the things that they want and need in life to be happy. So it's a loop. It's a loop. You know what you would want or need to make you happy, but you deny yourself having it. And then you become envious of those people out in the world who don't do that. And that envy can easily spin into resentment or all sorts of things. And there's different coping strategies depending on what specific type of 4 you are. I think I'm a social 4, I think. But the point is that I read that and it hit me way deep, like diaphragm, into the diaphragm and up. Like it felt like I was vomiting out something reading that. And it felt like, holy shit, that is completely true. And I'd never seen it before. So this stimulated some conversations with friends of mine, people I care a lot about. And those conversations led to other people talking about things that they had discovered in their own ritualistic, therapeutic, ceremonial, emotional journeying. Some of which then spun into me realizing yet more completely unseen but entirely true things. This past week for me has been life-changing. And I want to talk a little bit about why, because I think some of what has happened, what I've found, might be able to help you too. So if you're looking to use something in esotericism for positive growth, this is a good episode. All right, stick around. Lisa, I think people are doing more self-evaluation or stock in what they believe or who they are. And when a lot of energy is focused in that area, I believe that can also bleed over to others. It's certainly happening for me. I don't know if it's like a macro thing, but I know there's like 4 or 5 people in my life who are going through very similar things, but for very different reasons, and arriving at similar places. I couldn't get the Witchcraft in the Void video done this week because the script just got way, way, way too big. But I want to talk a little bit. This is a little bit of a preview, I guess, for the last bit of that video. The video is basically structured like a bunch of science, a bunch of esotericism, merging those two together, and then a personal experience with working with the void. And now, not to, spoil the point of working with void, but I do offer a suggestion in that video for how, first off, I say that there are 6 elemental forces that you can employ in your ritual work, even though in contemporary neo-paganism, we typically only think of 5, earth, air, fire, water, spirit. I offer that the void is a pleasant 6th. And not only that, I also say a little bit of how I'm working with it and how you might as well. Watch the video when it comes out, hopefully next week. My door's open today, so my cats are going to be all over me. But again, I'm just dropping all pretense of professionalism or intent today. I'm just going to be me. This is Bones. Say hi, buddy. He's angry. He doesn't like anything I just did. So in this Witchcraft and the Void video, I talk a little bit about what the void might be metaphysically, because each of the elemental forces in neo-paganism have a whole set of correspondences that align with them. Fire is a lot about will and projection. Water is a lot about receptivity and emotion. Wands are about passion. Swords are about intellect. I mean, we have all these. Oh, I kind of went into tarot suits. Sorry. The tarot suits in the Minor Arcana are also aligned with elemental symbolism, so I oftentimes will just use them as each other. Sorry. Wind, intellect, and what was the other? Earth. I don't think I said anything about Earth. Anyway, you get the idea. And then there's spirit, which is you. Void. What does void correspond to? I try to make a case in this video that not only intellectually, but also metaphysically and ritualistically, the void corresponds to basically the energetic interstate or highway of the universe. That by utilizing the void, essentially what you are doing in your ritual work is smoothing out the channels of energetic delivery between the cosmos and yourself. The result of which, ideally, is an amplification and also a greater efficiency in your spell working on the receptive end, meaning that your spell work, whatever it is that you're trying to do, occurs faster. This was my theoretical standpoint up until about 2 weeks ago when I actually started to try it. There's very minimal work out there. There's not a lot written about the void. Crowley wrote a little bit about it. He wrote about the abyss, and he called it one of the hardest concepts of his age. What Crowley didn't have, though, and what I talk about a lot in the top of that video that's hopefully coming out next week, Crowley didn't have holographic universe theory, and he didn't have quantum mechanics. And because he didn't have those, he couldn't, I think, properly conceptualize how these energetic resonances of the void actually communicated with us. So this is my theory, right? That basically void energy is amplification and efficiency. And that when starting any ritualistic practice, to begin by invoking the void, essentially you're emptying some part of yourself and opening it up for this ritual to be effective quickly. So a couple weeks ago, I started trying it. And first I started it with my daily invocation and banishing rituals, which are very stock, standard Golden Dawn rituals. And the way I started to try to employ it was a big part of what I think about the void metaphysically and how I'm employing it is also tied in with holographic universe theory, which is more and more not a theory as the days go by. Watch the video. I'll go into it more. I see you all being like, what? Just wait. Watch the video. I'm not even going to try to explain it here because it would take too long. I do it in the video, though. Part of this model is the idea that there are infinite extrapolations of data in the universe from a single two-dimensional plane. Infinite three-dimensional extrapolations from a single two-dimensional plane. What that means, among other things, is that there are multiple variations of you containing basically, or contained within basically the same space. You may have heard of, the multiverse. This is another sort of similar idea. So my way to start to work with the void was during that banishing ritual, in addition to just invoking it, I also started to try and see these multiple versions of myself in a two-dimensional cascade, like a funhouse mirror, or three-dimensional cascade, like a funhouse mirror, going infinitely out, at least in the room that I'm in doing these rituals in, to the edge of the room, infinitely out in front of me and behind me. And then I am in the middle of all of these sort of funhouse mirror manifestations of myself. And we are all engaged in this same exact ritual, which involves a dagger, drawing pentagrams in the air, and saying, basic ancient Jewish terminologies that are basically a prayer. If you don't know the Golden Dawn, they're basically a prayer to God and an invocation of the archangels, archetypal forces of the universe, elemental forces of the universe, as represented in the archangels Michael, Gabriel, Oriel, and Raphael. You're invoking all this. You're invoking, I would say, elemental energy into the chakra system. You're drawing pentagrams in the air to protect yourself. That's basically what the ritual is. But I saw, probably in the room I'm in, it's big enough that there was probably 20 versions of me as my eyes are closed and I'm imagining the pentagrams in the air, which you normally do. I added into that these multiple versions of myself. Very quickly, like within a day or two, that ritual started to take on an intensity that I've never quite felt. I also, my throat just like closed the hell up and my heart started racing. I also started to see things happening in my daily life somewhat removed. The thing that it put in my head was equanimity. The Buddhist idea of equanimity. I can't even talk. The Buddhist idea of equanimity, which is basically level mind, right? There's this Buddhist idea that a level mind that is observing one's life with a certain degree of removal from it is one of the most peaceful mind states that you can be in. I started to experience this as I'm reading about my own Enneagram. One of the solutions for this envy problem that the author Beatrice Chestnut recommends in this book is equanimity. But I am discovering this as I am beginning to experience it before I read about it. Okay? This is one of about 30 synchronicities, little tiny eensy-beensy coincidences that are so minor and insignificant, if you weren't paying attention to them, you may not even notice them at all, that all start to cascade over the past few weeks. It's kind of why the live show has been a little weird the past few weeks, because I'm trying to catch up to what is even happening. All of this culminates in a few days ago, just kind of realizing the specific way in which I have kept myself attached to a story that began when I was a boy. Luckily, I have a very good friend who was kind of helping me through realizing that this story was not only no longer true, objectively, materially, out in the real world, but also could not be true. It wasn't that just that it's not true, it's that it couldn't be true. Because my current life circumstances just reflect a different reality than the one I'm perceiving in my head, reflect a different version of me moving through the world than the version that I'm telling myself is true internally. And so because I'm telling myself that this other version is true, all of this external stuff feels somehow not quite real, not fully real. And that ends up getting twisted into this thing where I'm never fully present in myself, because some part of me is always drawn back from reality in that story, because I haven't reconciled that story with my current reality. I hope they won't mind. I didn't ask them. I'm just going to steal their hypothetical, because I think spelling out what they spelled to me in the way of a hypothetical is the best way to illustrate it. I'll modify it somewhat slightly. Okay, you can use this. All right, listen to this as if you're just listening to a story. All right. If you're anything like me, this is gonna hurt a little. Brace yourself. Here's the story. There's a young girl. We'll call her Mary. Mary is born into a family in the Midwest that is kind of a transient family. You know, they've got a boyfriend and the mother and a bunch of pets, and they move around a lot because sometimes the paychecks aren't quite there, so they have to kind of jump from place to place and stay with family and stay in somewhere else, and it's tough. It's tough for them. Neither one of the boyfriend or the mother can really hold down a job for too terribly long, because they've got their own sort of like emotional issues and substance abuse issues and just things that they need to work through. But they're young. Mary's parents are 19 and 20 years old at the time that Mary's born. And one of them doesn't have their high school degree. The other one has their high school degree, but hasn't gone into the workforce at all. Mary's mother, because she got pregnant with Mary right on the end of her high school career. All right. This is the world Mary is born into. So Mary's born, and all of these emotional issues and substance abuse issues and all these things, which are not only not treated in Mary's parents, they're not even really recognized or called out. Mary's parents aren't arguing about the substance abuse issues going on. They're not talking about it at all. They're just stuck in this pattern that gets more and more ingrained, and also more and more serious as the days go on. The consequences get more and more serious. Drinking becomes pills, pills become shots, shots become different kinds of pills, which become fentanyl, which become it's this cascading effect. So that by the time Mary is 5 years old and ready to enter kindergarten, Mary's father, the boyfriend, is just gone. Mary's mother has no idea where he is. He just disappears one day and she never hears from him again. Mary's mother is working 25 hours a week as a temp at a legal office, trying to find better work, but she's struggling. She's struggling to keep up with the mounting costs of Mary's life, the childcare, the education, the food, all this stuff. She's on government assistance, but that isn't nearly enough. And on top of that, Mary's mother can't even go to Food Lion to get food for her family, her and her daughter, without everyone judging her, because she's, not looking too great. She's scrawny, she's strung out, she's got big circles under her eyes. They can only get to the laundromat once a month, so sometimes there's a little bit of a kind of twingy, mildewy smell to the way Mary's clothes smell, and the way Mary's clothes smell, and there's nothing she can do about it. She's stretched. She can't fix it. And she's barely keeping her head up emotionally by the time Mary's ready to enter school. So Mary enters school, and, for the first 6 months or so, she brings her homework home, and she's excited, and she loves the other kids, and she tries to get her mom to help her with stuff, but her mom's just too tired and too beat down already, and is starting to do that thing that you start to do whenever it is in your adult life that you encounter the fact that the way that things are is likely the way things will remain forever. And Mary's mother, very much suppressed energetically and emotionally and spiritually and even mentally by this oncoming revelation, this this everyday more and more clear vision of her own future has started to withdraw within herself and has no one to talk to about it, doesn't know what to do about it at all. So all she's basically doing now emotionally is just trying to get through that day. That's all she can do. And she's desperately looking forward to that paycheck. And she's desperately looking forward to, how am I going to make sure X, Y, and Z happens? And when she has 20 extra bucks at the end of the week, it's going to some pill or it's going to some drink or some drug because she is in so much deep, deep pain and she does not see the way out of it. So 6 months after Mary starts her education, she's in trouble already. She stops doing her homework because she doesn't really know how. She is in a home where everything is darkness. She doesn't feel like she's like the other kids because they don't seem to be carrying the same weight that she is. So she starts to act out. She starts to get in fights, verbal at first, but then physical. By the 3rd grade, she's one of those kids. We all know those kids. A lot of us probably were those kids. She's one of those kids who just seems lost, and all her teachers are giving her a look, and she can feel it even though she can't articulate quite what it is yet. She can feel that look. And the look is, I know exactly what's coming for you, kid. It's not good. It's not right, but it happens. Some teachers maybe try and push through it, but there's too much at home. There's too much at home for Mary. So Mary gets into the 10th grade. She's been held back a few times. And in the middle of 10th grade, she's 18. And she's been in fight after fight after fight. She's been in juvenile court already. She's been on all kinds of, academic lists, detention and suspension and the whole thing. Middle of 10th grade, she starts to experiment with drugs and alcohol, like her mom, who is now 90 pounds, basically a skeleton, and is doing God knows what. By the middle of 11th grade, Mary drops out of school because there's no point in sticking around. All right. Fast forward 10 years. Mary's now in her late 20s. She's been through hell. A drug curiosity became an addiction. The lack of any degree and the, constant looming appearance of a juvenile record pushes Mary to do some dumb things as an adult. So it becomes an adult record. By the time she's in her late 20s, she doesn't have any real prospects for the future, nor does she really think about the future that much because her daily life is so deeply painful. But one day somebody says something to her, a friend of hers, says something that she wasn't expecting, and it jogs something in her mind, and she says, you know what? I can afford to go take GED classes. So she does. And it takes her like a year, but by the time she's 30, she can take her GED test, and she fails it. But she comes back, she does it again. I don't know how the GED works, but let's say that's how it works. She comes back, she does it again, she succeeds. So now she can get a full-time job as a paralegal, let's say. She's doing that. A couple years later, she's got an apartment that she's been in. She actually has her name on the lease. She's bought a used car from a friend of hers for $400, and it breaks down all the time, but it gets her back and forth to work. By the time she's in her, 33, 34, she decides, well, okay, my legal office says that they'll pay for me to go take night classes to get an associate's degree if I'll go do it. So she goes and she does it. By 36, she's got the degree. It's also around this time she quits smoking cigarettes, something she's been doing since she's 15. It's hard, but she pushes through it. She realizes she's not drinking that much. She hasn't touched an illicit substance that's tremendously harmful in years, nor is she really tempted to because she's so focused on just trying to get stable. In her late 30s, her mom dies. And this kicks off about a year or two of real deep darkness. And some of those habits reemerge. But she finds her way out. She ends up getting that associate's degree by 41. She becomes a valued member of the firm where she works, someone that her boss relies on, that his clients rely on. She starts to see some people she knew in high school come through that office. She starts to see, by judging herself against her peers, or what she perceives as her peers, that she's doing okay, that she's doing all right. And she holds that line. But here's the problem with what's going on with Mary. The story that was planted in her head when she was 5 about being different, that was reiterated in the 3rd grade, where the teachers started giving her looks that she didn't understand, but she would come to understand them. That story, that you are different, that you are less than these others, that these others are somehow more important, more distinguished, and have more potential than you, that story is still running in her head. Still. She's stupid. She's not going to amount to anything. She's going to end up like her mom. All of these things. But Mary's current situation, full-time at a law firm, associate's degree, GED, car, maybe she's bought a used car from an actual dealership now, doesn't break down as much, apartment, saving up for maybe a small home, paying her bills on time, drug-free, alcohol-free. All of these gigantic accomplishments, when you consider where she started from versus where she is, don't align with the story she's telling herself from when she was like 5. But Mary doesn't see that because no one's pointed it out to her. No one said, hey, that thing you think about yourself, it actually cannot be true now. Because look at what is around you. Look at what you've done. You are not like your mother. You are not destitute. You are strong. You've overcome. You are, in fact, the exact opposite of what you think you are. Someone says that to Mary one day. And when someone says that to her, she realizes that she only has really a couple options now. Either she has to deny the material reality around her, which is unequivocally true, and continue to live in the story, or she has to accept that the story is flawed and find another one. This past week, someone pointed this out to me, and I was forced to accept that my story is flawed. And luckily, they pointed out what to do about it, which is to quietly, gently, gracefully give yourself some space to say thank you to this version of you. In my case, it's this boy. Thank you for everything. It's time for me to move on. And the astounding thing about it, the beautiful thing about it, I would say, is that when I did that, I felt that boy want to go. He was just as tired of being here as I was of him being here. This other thing, this other one that is rooted more in present circumstance, was tired of him because he kept dragging us back to a place where we no longer were emotionally. And he was tired too, because he didn't want to be doing that. But I hadn't given him permission to be done. So I did. And that night was one of the best nights of my life. I slept better than I've slept in years. I woke up feeling completely different. A lot of problems I had been struggling with were just gone. And it's real. It really took. Now, obviously, is there going to be stuff pop up in the future, temptations, old school, old ways of thinking that pop in and drag me a little bit off the course? Of course that's going to happen. It's not like a light switch, but Jesus, I cannot ignore the fact that all of these things, the reading about the Enneagram, the void work, the ritual magic in the first place, having these conversations every Friday with you, I cannot ignore that they all were happening at the same time and culminated in what was internally a tremendously transformational and impactful moment for me that, if I'm honest, I was so powerful, I don't even know how I could go back, because now I see it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So I encourage you to put yourself in Mary's shoes and think about what it is you started telling yourself when you were young about yourself that is now cannot actually be true anymore. And if it's not true anymore, identify that person in you and say goodbye. The same person who helped me see it said something that I think is one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. They said, it's better to just say goodbye than it is to stretch it out and to think about, it's like ending a relationship with a spouse. It's better to just end it than it is to stretch it out, trying to find some tactic or something. You just say goodbye. It's hard, but you just do it. And God, I can't tell you how it feels. So that's the rant for the day. Figure out what your story is. Read about your Enneagram. It was helpful for me. It's not helpful for everybody, but it was helpful for me. Another thing you can do, and I encourage you to, is tarot. Through these past few years, tarot has been a tool for me constantly. I don't really talk about it a whole lot on this channel because I don't want to be one of those tarot readers, So that's not what this is. I'm not going to charge for readings or some stupid shit like that. But I want to talk about how I see the tarot, which is largely rooted in personal development and using archetypal images as a way to give you further understanding into your own life and whatever it is that you're struggling with. The way that I use tarot, you don't even have to really believe that there's anything esoteric or metaphysical going on. You really don't, because you can treat it like a curiosity more than an energetic pattern or something that's coming from divinity. You can just treat it like a curiosity, like when you read your horoscope in the paper, that's interesting. You can treat it that way and it still works. It still does what it's designed to do, which is gives you insights that you wouldn't have had you not sat down with that deck of cards and asked the question. Of course, if you're like me, you're inclined to attach a lot more to it, so you can also do that. So I want to do a little bit, because I honestly don't know. I read a little bit about, I've just got the Rider-Waite deck here. I read a little bit about Age of Aquarius and the astrological patterns that are happening right now. Again, astrology is not really my jam, but it didn't feel, I don't think it's what's going on. So instead of trying to like identify it, because again, this is just my story today, I could tell you 5 or 6 friends of mine who were the exact same thing is happening, but in wildly different ways at the same time. Which to me is like, at the very least, it's worth looking at. So I just want to take these cards here. If you're in the chat and you want to ask a question, we can do that too. I'd be glad to answer your questions for free. Your tarot questions. I want to just pull 3 cards and see what they say about what's happening right now, about whatever this strange thing is that I know. In addition to all that transformational stuff, there is a real insane uptick in synchronistic things happening, in people revealing who they are all around me. Old stories falling away for people like crazy. So I'm curious what the tarot has to say. First card we got. Oh, all right. Is that focus? Focus. This is the Hanged Man, and he is reversed. All right. We'll put him down. Let's draw another one. We'll talk about all of them together. Here we go. Whoa, another major arcana. This is Temperance reversed. I need another camera so you can see the cards. That would be smart. But I don't have that. And then we have the 8 of Pentacles. Whoops. There we go. Got it? I love Pentacles, man. It might be my favorite suit. I'm definitely more watery. Like, if you're gonna say I'm a tarot suit, I'm Cups. But all of the Pentacle cards just make me so very happy. All right, let's think a little bit about the Hanged Man. I almost said Wheel of Fortune. The Hanged Man in reverse. So this is what he looks like normally. I suppose he looks somewhat more normal when he's reversed. But you often get comparisons to Christ here, for obvious reasons, hanging on a big old piece of wood. The illuminated circle around his head, the 4. I'm just pointing out things to notice here, things that we're about to talk about. The fact that he is upside down, but his face appears very calm and centered. There you go. Wow, look at that focus. Man, I'm good at this. This card typically has to do with like wisdom, seeing things from a different angle. Like if you're upside down, you're obviously going to see things from a different angle. It can have to do with sacrifice. When you reverse it, basically those attributes are in a state of want. That's the way I like to think about reversals. It's not necessarily that these things are like, it's not like it's the opposite of the card necessarily, as much as it is that these things are lacking. So part of what you could infer from that, thinking about this particular moment, is that there's a specific kind of wisdom or different perspective that has not been present. All right. It has been missing. When we move on to Temperance, here I'll show her upright. This is one of my best friend's favorite card. They talk about this card all the time, and it comes up for them like every single reading they ever do for themselves. Temperance appears. Focus! I really need to figure this out. Temperance. It's like an angel with 2 cups, standing in a body of water, pouring water between the 2 cups. It's also a major arcana card, which means it's integrated into a larger tarot story about journeying through self. And it came up reversed upside down, just like that. All right. So what we can infer from Temperance just upright has to do with, like the cups suggest, a kind of balance, right? Temper, like tempering steel, right? A balance, not too much of one thing, not too much of another thing. Harmony. If you think about balance musically, harmony, right? That's typically associated with Temperance, almost to the degree where you could say it's divine harmony. Notice here on the chest of the angel, you have a triangle, right? A triad. Very, very important shape in esotericism. Divine harmony, universal patterns in harmonious alignment. These sorts of things are associated with Temperance. But then when you make it personal, again, it's about balance internally, especially emotionally. But it also has to do a little bit with like how you achieve that balance. So control, self-control, moderating the influences around you so that you can remain steady and level. So since it's reversed, we can say that these sorts of things are in a state of lack, right? So drawing back to the first card, there's a certain wisdom that has not been present. And also, things are out of balance. Things are out of harmony. Now we can personalize this. We can shove it into our hearts if we want. We can say that we have been missing a certain kind of wisdom, or you or I, and that we have been out of balance, or you or I have been out of balance. Also out of control. For some reason, the control feels very important. I know, I'm sure you probably agree with this. It's like understatement of the year. When I turn on the news, one of the first thoughts I tend to have is, why don't these people control themselves? All of them. They are out of control. Their id is everything. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. But I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. So being out of control feels very important for Temperance appearing in this question of what is this surge that we're going through. And then the last card we have again here is our 8 of Pentacles. Notice 8 is an important number. They're all important numbers, but 8 is an important number because 8 on its side is infinity, which is a very, very powerful number. Notice here we kind of have a craftsman plugging away at a pentacle, which is just basically a coin. And then there's a bunch of coins on the wall and one kind of at his feet, suggesting that he just finished working on it. Got a candle behind him, a little village. No, it's a little village, not a candle. We got yellows. Everything feels kind of jolly, doesn't it? It feels kind of like pleasant. It feels nice in this scene. He's just toiling away at his little coin. And that is basically what what that scene is. It's if you want to interpret what the 8 of Pentacles means, it's enjoying the moment of working on something that you know how to do, enjoying your craft, enjoying the simple pleasure of mastering something for its own sake. You don't see, even though he's got a blacksmith apron and hammer and chisel here, you could derive from that he's going to go sell these things at a market or something like that. But it's not necessarily, he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to. He would probably be doing this anyway because he just enjoys his job. He just enjoys what he's doing. He's just enjoying making the thing. It's simple. The 8 of Pentacles is simple. That's part of why I like the Pentacles so much. They're simple. They're very earthy. It's very straightforward. It's like what you see on the card is pretty much what you get. There's not a whole lot of depth going on here, other than it is tremendously difficult, in my experience, to enjoy what you do for money. Even if you love the thing. That I'm so fortunate in this way, in that a lot of my time is spent doing stuff that I legitimately love. I work a lot in media, and I love working with media, obviously. I love thinking, I love reading, I love communicating, and I do those things as a part of my daily life most of the time. But let me tell you something, that old phrase, do what you love and you never work a day in your life, is bullshit. 100% bullshit. What has been true in my experience is the exact opposite. Do what you love, and you're going to have to work harder than you've ever worked ever. You know why? Here's what that adage does not account for. When you do what you love, that means you're doing a singular vision because you love it, right? Even if you're not whole cloth creating entities like a YouTube channel or a business or whatever, even if what you love happens to be working in a pattern that's already really well laid out for you, it's still your specific interaction with that pattern. The way that you love it is specific to you, which means that you take on the responsibility for it once you start to engage with it. That responsibility is a tremendous burden. Tremendous burden. Even if you love the actual act itself, it's still a burden. It's still a burden. There are people who are very good at convincing you that it's not. That all you got to do is find what you really love to do in this world, and then you're good. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. It's also late American capitalist bullshit. You know, like the idea that something that you do for money is ever going to fix you is so capitalist nonsense. 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 If I woke up tomorrow and ToSalem somehow, through some cosmic crazy thing, had gifted me with $1 million, do you know how unhappy I would be? I would have the immediate, adrenaline rush, that dopamine hit of like, yeah, I did it, right? Because I've been trained to have that. But it would very soon be followed by, what the hell do I do now? Which is the most soul-crushing question. What do I do now? Oh, I hate that question. I did not give myself 2 minutes after Lynn Lady was over, something of which I am tremendously proud. By the way, 5 out of the 6 episodes are out now on all your podcast platforms. Go search for it. Salem's Ghost of the Lynn Lady. Final one's coming out tomorrow. I did not give myself 2 seconds after the premiere of that thing, for which I worked harder than I have ever worked on anything in my entire damn life. I didn't give myself 2 seconds to enjoy it. Before that, I don't know if I can say the F word on this channel and I don't know what happens now with the YouTube rules. I did not give myself 2 seconds before that question popped into my head. What now? And it stole all my joy. All of it. That question will put you in the ground. And the way that it appears is you do something successfully. You do something successfully. You do something that you love and you pull it off. Like we did at Lynn Lady. That premiere was flawless. It was exactly what we wanted it to be. It felt easy. It felt simple. I'm not blowing smoke up my own ass here. It was a big team of people who worked really, really hard and we achieved it. And I'm proud of us. Nothing went wrong. Really. We had a few little things, but nothing went like crazily wrong, and it was live and no one in the world had ever done it before. You would think after all of that, I would give myself at least a day of being like, you know what? Good. You did good. Take a victory lap. But I didn't. And if you dropped $1 million in my lap, knowing that I didn't wouldn't keep me from doing it again. Because it is insidious as shit, this American story we're in. It is so dark, and it is so deep, and it is so interwoven into your consciousness and my consciousness that we can't even enjoy a moment without thinking about how we can capitalize on it in the future. Not one moment. This dude would make these things regardless of who bought them. I can tell you that right now. He would make them for infinity. He would just keep going. You know why? You know what it reminds me of? If you've watched the whole stream up to this point, it reminds me of the drums. Now that I'm playing the drums and just losing myself in the simple pleasure of memorizing patterns, which is so pleasurable to me. I'm a child. I like beady beady bang bang loud loud. Before this stream, I was up with my big Bluetooth speaker just playing every White Stripes song on Spotify because Meg White is like this brilliant drummer who does the simplest patterns, but in a very interesting way. I didn't know that until today. I'd always heard she was an interesting drummer, but playing the actual music, I'm like, oh, look at that. There's a simple delight. And I feel like I know her a little bit now. I feel like I get her a little bit now because I see how she did what she did. And it is a little bit strange. A little bit, oh, okay. You don't normally I've only been playing the drums 3 days and I already know like that a White Stripes drum riff is very different from a Weezer drum riff, even if they're in the exact same tempo and time signature. Very, very different beats because Meg White is kind of out there and you can tell when you play. It's a little wild. It's a simple pleasure that I'm giving myself with no expectation, no commercial interests. And that question, that what now question, hasn't occurred to me once. And I swear to God, if I let myself capitalize this interest, it will be a tremendous failing on my part. Never should I make a dime from playing the drums, ever. Nor should I share it with anyone on any platform that is algorithmically inclined to give me false dopaminogenic hits from social interactions. Because it's the same damn thing. Making money and getting a like are the same damn thing. Literally. Now, take it from me, I know. It simulates the same thing, and it's toxic at both ways. So what this reading says to me is that this moment, it doesn't tell me a lot about what exactly is leading us into this moment. Let me just hold up the cards in case you've forgotten. It doesn't tell me a lot about what is leading us or what energetically has led us into this moment. To me, it more feels like a reminder of the sorts of influences that lead you to a place. No, it doesn't even do that. It's just showing us what is with the reversed Hangman and reversed Temperance. That's how it feels to me. And it's showing us that, you know, the answer might be very simple here. Very simple. Find a thing that you would do no matter what. And all of the attention that you would normally give to social media, to the news, to toxic people in your life, to your own degradation, right? Thinking about the Enneagram conversation earlier, to your own false imprisonment because of this narrative that is no longer sound. I hope after today you realize your narrative is no longer sound. All the energy that you would normally give to that, give to your version of the drums instead for a week and see what happens. While challenging these notions that you've put up in your brain, these cathedrals of degradation and despair that you have built brick by brick, stone by stone over the years. Knock it the hell down consciously and focus on crocheting. Journal about it so you remember. That's going to be important. Journal about it every day this week so you remember what all this was like. Do video vlogs. Do whatever you want. This, for me, is a type of journaling, for sure. But give yourself the simple pleasure of doing, removed from all this shit, all this commercialist nonsense, this algorithmic tyranny. Give yourself a break in a material pleasure. That's my advice. That's apparently the way out. Apparently. I didn't know that when I got my drum kit, but apparently I was on to something. I got 2 questions sent to me. I don't know if I'm going to answer them or not. I'm not crazy about either one of them. I'm going to shuffle in the chat. You want me to pull a card or 2 for you? Let me know what you're thinking about, and let's see what the tarot says while I shuffle. And I'll think about if I want to answer either one of these questions. Ooh, look at that riffle. Mama! When I was a child, I was very, very interested in card tricks. So I learned a lot of card tricks, and I learned how to shuffle real good. Tarot cards are only slightly larger. This first question I got, I'm just going to ask the question. You're going to know immediately why I don't like it. Do you worship the devil? Legitimately got that question. No. I don't. Do I run with the devil? Yeah, a little bit. The other one I don't like for different reasons. I didn't actually write this one down. I just remember it. If you're watching this, I don't mean to be critical, but somebody sent me a long question because they are under the impression that someone is doing magical working against them, and that the things that have gone on in their lives or their life are a result of this magical working. And I read this email. If you're watching, I read it. I didn't respond to it, and I'm not going to, because when I read it, if I'm honest with you, what it felt like to me was somebody who really needs to take a step back from the world of the esoteric for a minute. This is all nice. This is all good. This is all great for self-transformation and for giving yourself a framework of relationship between you and your surroundings, your environment, your cosmic, placement. It's all well and good. It's all well and good for all of that. It can even give you extremely good insights into who you are as a person, how you might grow emotionally and spiritually. But I don't think you should ever be thinking that the problems in your life are connected to spiritual failings on your part or spiritual assaults on the part of anyone around you. It's not necessarily that I believe that that can't be true. I don't know. If it's ever been true for me, it's not been consciously true. I've not been aware of it happening. But it's more that magic is way weirder than that. In my experience, it's way weirder than people hexing you. Way, way weirder. And also, it's more beneficial. If you stop treating it like it is a material thing, like how you see in Charmed or Sabrina or something, and start to treat it as just how strange things like coincidence, multiple levels of reality, that sort of thing. If you start to treat it that way, it's way more helpful, in my opinion, because then you're not doing money spells. You're doing spells to more clearly communicate with the divine. Way more interesting to me. Money's not even real. All right, I'm going to pull one, and then we're going to bounce out of here. I'm going to pull one for you, dude who emailed me, because I feel your pain. I don't mean to diminish it at all. I feel the pain in the words. I feel it. And I'm sorry you're feeling it, but you got to know that there's another way out besides blaming hexes. There's another way out. So let's see what your way out is. I'm just going to pull one for you. This is your way out, according to the tarot, or this is what you can think about in order to find your way out. Okay. This is what you got. This is the Two of Swords. We have a crescent moon in the background, a sort of New England-esque oceanic scene with craggy cliffs and rocks, and then a woman in the foreground blindfolded with two large swords crossed over her chest on a stone throne that is also itself on a stone platform. What we might derive from this image is that it certainly looks, doesn't it? If you just look at the image, it looks like something is about to happen, right? It looks like we're catching this scene. If this is like a kung fu movie or something, we've walked into this scene with this woman sitting on a chair with these swords over her chest, and our hero is slowly approaching. And we have that sense something is about to happen. We don't know quite what it is. Hero might get their head cut off. Woman might say, take off the blindfold and start chatting, and it's like a humorous moment. We don't know, but we know something's happening. Because it's a two also, we can kind of derive that there's something about the nature of twos in general that is binary, typically. Either or. Yes or no. Black or white. Two options. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's only two options in your immediate field of view, but it indicates that what the card at least is speaking to is a binary thing, a do or not do. All right. Now, because it's also swords here, and hearkening back to this idea of walking into this scene and it looks like something is about to happen, the Two of Swords is oftentimes a lot about a decision, right? If you think about this again as like a kung fu movie that you're walking into, doesn't it feel like this woman, as you approach her, is going to make some decision that is going to impact how the rest of that scene plays out? Now, what kind of decision, right? She could take these swords and be like a blind warrior and just go to town. She could drop them and take off her blindfold. Maybe she's been sitting in this position for a long time. And like Lisa says in the chat here, she drops the swords, she takes off the mask, and she hasn't seen this scene in years. There's a lot of ways this could go, but the root of the Two of Swords is that it is time now, right now, for her to make this decision. And since we're speaking to the issue that you sent me a question about, which is feeling like you're under some sort of energetic attack, I would say that right now is a good moment for you to make a decision about what it is that you want to do right now. I'm not talking, our earlier hypothetical, go back, get your GED, whatever. I'm not talking any of that stuff. All that stuff is back burner, okay? It can happen. But here's the way you get anything complicated in life done. Is you take the complicated thing, you break it down into its simplest components, and then you start to execute those. You get better at executing those as time goes on. You get better at holding multiple simple tasks in your mind simultaneously. You get more and more adept at complicated tasks. And then before you know it, you're building businesses, which are tremendously complicated things to do or to construct. All right. This card really invites you to make a simple decision right now. What that decision is can be a lot of stuff. It could be fight. It could be compromise. It could be, focus. It could be a ton of different things. But this card typically is like, all right, it's time. And it's time literally right now. If you're watching this, shut this off and go make the decision. as to what sort of decisions or what sort of areas in your life you should probably be thinking about in terms of what this decision might be that you need to make if something doesn't immediately present itself. If something immediately presents itself, do that and disregard everything I'm about to say, because your instinct is always right about these sorts of things. So whatever your instinct immediately tells you, trust it. But if it doesn't immediately tell you something, it will likely be something that you are kind of blind to a little bit. It might be something that you sort of hear like a whisper, like, oh, I should really do that thing. But you've never really given it serious consideration. You know, walking into your boss's office and saying, hey, you know how there's a pandemic? I'm going to need more money. If you've always wanted to get more money. I mean, it can be something like that. It can be something, because it's swords, it can be something very intellectual too. It might be something very calculated and deliberate and intellectual and kind of heady. So if there's maybe you've always wanted to read, I don't know, a hard book or study a thing that you've always been interested in, but has always seemed very complicated and heady and kind of beyond your reach. Well, today's the day, my friend. Today is the day to get your little butt on Amazon, take your $15 or go to your local bookstore, whatever it is you got to do, and get the most basic form of that thing on its way to you today. And then to dive in and enjoy the simple pleasure of learning. Maybe that is your simple pleasure. Speaking to the earlier reading that we did here, maybe that is your simple pleasure, is just learning and becoming more adept at what feels to me anyway like a very technical thing that you're considering. You know, technical shit is great to learn, in my opinion. I love learning technical stuff, even though I'm an ooey gooey emotional person. I relish learning technical stuff like the drums because it's simple. It's simple. All you got to do is just do it over and over and over and over and over and over again. You don't have to discover it. You just have to execute it. And you just get better and better and better and better at executing it. And you learn more and more and more about how you can execute it better and better and better and better. It's beautiful to me. I love that feeling of walking into something with zero idea of how to do it, figuring out what the simplest entry point is, and then going and starting to do it. I might do that. I mean, I'm doing it with drums too, but I might just whole cloth. I might do this with you, homie. I haven't whipped out the word homie in years. I might, find something else in addition to the drums and just all across my life, just start a whole series of simple technical things that I can focus on to grow that I've maybe always wanted to. You know what's another one for me? Typing. I was never taught to type correctly. I have tried to learn a few times, but I always fall off. It feels like now's the time. Now's the time to learn how to type. These are the sorts of things that I'm talking about, all right? Very tactile, very intellectual, very, this is the kind of world. I'm not talking about emotional stuff. I'm not talking about how do I make my relationship better with my wife. Maybe I'll go and buy a book so I can understand her more. No, that's another day. That's another moment. We're talking simple. We're talking executable. We're talking I can do it right now. All right. And I don't have to invest thousands and thousands of dollars to do it. I can just get on a YouTube video, how to type better, and then learn it. Okay. I know that your email was about feeling like you're out of control in your life. And I know that you were worried that the reason that you were out of control was because of some larger energetic oppression. In a way, you're correct. But it's not as simple to fix it as you think, okay? Or it's not as easy. It is very simple, but it's not as easy. The way in which you are correct is if you don't have enough executable functions in your life will be chaos. There are simple things that we have to do every single day that aren't sexy and aren't fun and are very simple. And maybe we don't like doing them all that much, but we have to do them anyway. You have to wake up on time. You have to exercise. You have to eat okay. You have to shower regularly. You have to do X, Y, and Z. You have to get the kids out to school. There's 100 things, depending on your life, that you just have to do. And if you don't do those things, regardless of your emotional reasons for not doing them, it doesn't matter. If you don't do those things, your life will suck. And that can feel like, yes, arm fat is jiggly. That can feel oppressive, right? It can feel like the world bearing itself down on you because you've let all of these things go. And in that way, for you to say, you know, I feel that some sort of magical working has been done against me, in that way, your feeling is 100% valid, because in a way, if you've not put enough of these sorts of decisions in your life and made those decisions and started to like escalate up that staircase of being, you know, a staircase of aptitude, let's say, if you've not gotten enough of those in the rear view, you are going to be in a situation where you are oppressed by the world because you're not very good at navigating these simple tasks. And that leads you to a place where all sorts of bad shit's coming your way. You know, can't hold down a job, can't wake up on time, can't do X, Y, Z, because they compound. There's interest in everything. It compounds, and then you end up in a situation where, you know, a million things are wrong and you don't know what to do about any single one of them. And then is where it starts to enter your brain. Maybe someone cast a spell against me. Maybe I'm not laughing at your situation. I'm not laughing at the pain that you're feeling. I've been there, my dude. I have been there. I'm not laughing at the pain. I'm laughing at the explanation that it's like hex work. When the truth is probably that the best person to get your shit together is you. And it starts with 1,000 of these, you know, one after the other. Bam, 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 bam. One today, two tomorrow. Simple, executable, technical. Do this thing because you know you need to. Remove. It's so hard for me, man. I'm a grand water trine. I'm water all the way. I am emotion, 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 emotion. Everything about me is emotion. Even right now, I feel my entire physical form and, you know, all around my head is just electrified with emotion. All of it. I am at 2% of what I could be emotionally right now. All right. I know if anybody knows, it's me, how hard it is to fight through emotions and do stuff that you just know you have to do. It is so freaking hard. But that is not an excuse not to do it. It may be harder for you than other people, and that sucks, but that's the way it is. It's harder for me to do stuff, you know, some stuff than it is other people. It's harder for other people to do some stuff that's super easy for me. I got a very close friend that cannot talk about what they're feeling, no matter how you phrase it. They just can't. They can give you 1 ounce of sentimentality, just a little, and then it's immediately followed up with a joke. Because they've been trained over time that humor is an acceptable distraction from sentimentality. And because that training was so good, now they actually can't be sentimental without immediately wanting to buttress it up with humor, which in their mind negates whatever was the sentimentality. I'm constantly saying to this friend, you're very funny, but what we were talking about, like constantly, because it's a super common thing. I've noticed. I've never felt the impulse really, but I know a lot of people who that's their jam, right? Humor disperses sentimentality. And that's how they deal with it. And for me, it is so easy to wallow in sentimentality. I could do it all day. It's just who I am, right? So we all have these things that are easier for us and seem to be more challenging for others, or are very easy for other people, or seem to be easy for other people and are more challenging for us. I gather from your email and from this, the fact that this is the card that came up for you, that simple tasks are challenging, that you are so consumed with your emotional situation right now that you're finding it difficult to execute a simple list of things that need to be done. I would encourage you to literally put them down on a piece of paper. Whatever it is, and I'm not talking about I need to wake up at 5:30 in the morning and go to the gym for 2 hours. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about stuff that would be nice if you could get to it someday, if you could work your way toward it. I'm talking about right now, today. What are these simple tasks that you need to do to have a good day, a productive day, a day that you don't hate yourself at the end of? A day that when you lay down at night, your brain isn't racing, because this happens to all of us, and we don't, not all of us, but most of my friends are like this, and I am like this, and we don't realize where it's coming from. You lay down at night and your brain is just racing, right? A lot of that is chemical. Sure, we're on our phones too late. We watch TV too late. We're stimulated too late, whatever. But a lot of it too is just general unhappiness. It's just general not being able to feel okay with the day. And that is so like deeply rooted in your subconscious that you don't even realize that's what's keeping you up. But what you're thinking about or fantasizing about is tomorrow, right? What you're going to do tomorrow that's better. Dig down under that thought a little bit, and you immediately find that what is at the root of it is that you're not very happy with what you did today. This happens constantly with me. I would be surprised if it weren't also happening to you in some fashion. So think of it that way. When you're writing it down on that piece of paper, what do I have to do today that I could theoretically maybe feel better in bed tonight than I did last night? And if you do it and you knock all those things off the list and you get in bed and you still don't feel super good, reevaluate. Look at that list and say, well, I did this, but it doesn't really feel great. And it doesn't really feel that productive. And it didn't really seem like something that needed to get done. So take it off the list. Mix and match until you have a day where it's like, man, I killed it today. And see how good you feel getting in that bed and waking up the next day. It is so simple, but it is not easy. And my heart goes out to you, man. Even though I did not answer your actual question, which was about hexes, I think I did answer it. Which is, it ain't a hex, my friend. You got a million things you could do. Do some. All right? This didn't happen in the chat, but I'm going to pull a card for somebody who just reached out to me. You know who you are. This is for someone who is probably similar to the person that emailed me or feels similarly, who has been going through the same sorts of things and trying to move forward, but keeps getting pulled back into energetic patterns that they're not cool with being pulled into. And then we'll go. Jesus, long show today. All right. I might just start doing shows like this every day. All the planning and shit, I don't like it. This feels much more natural. This feels much more like, let's just talk and let's pull some cards and let's be weird together. You know what I'm doing tonight? At like 6, I think, one of my favorite bands, Manchester Orchestra, is doing a live show on YouTube. They're playing their entire album, Black Mile to the Surface, beginning to end, which is one of my favorite albums. 2 songs on it already I've drummed on my drum kit. They were the first band that I was like, I have to learn their songs. They're playing it all beginning to end. And then right after that, or shortly after that, The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs on Shudder is doing a Valentine's Day double feature. I don't know what the movies are. I never look at what the movies might be. You never know until the show. But sometimes they'll reveal stuff on Twitter that like gives hints away. I never look at it though because I don't want to know. I just want it to be a surprise. That is my night, and I'm very excited about it. I don't know why I felt the need to tell you that, other than I just want you to know me. All right, here we go. This is for that person. Question being, I feel a lot of this like patterns need to be changed, but I keep getting pulled back in. I start to try and move in a direction, and I keep getting pulled back in. What can the tarot tell me? What can I learn from a card that might give me what I need to stop getting pulled back in and to actually move forward? All right. This feels good. This feels good. All right. We're going to go here. Oh, okay. All right. Here you go. We got another pentacle. Pentacles are great for this sort of stuff because the pentacles are straightforward. This is, here, let me do it upright first. It came up reversed, but there you go. There's the 5. Ooh, focus. There's the 5 of Pentacles. We have a snowy scene here. with a young person on crutches in the foreground and a woman kind of in a shroud in the background. They both appear to be in front of a structure that kind of looks like a church, maybe, with stained glass, and then you have the 5 pentacles there on the glass. It came up reversed, and that's what it looks like reversed. So the first thing that springs to mind is this was a good time to ask that question, because this is a snowy scene. And knowing you as I do, I know that you, like me, are currently experiencing winter, which means that this is a very present message for you. Okay. Like the card suggests, I really need another camera so I don't have to hold it up. This card, when it's upright, has to do with poverty. Because you have the kind of Tiny Tim person on the crutches, it has to do a lot with illness. You can kind of say that maybe the woman is poverty and the child in the front is illness. See, they got their head bandaged. They're on the crutches there. They're also crucially wearing, if you compare them to any like sort of regal card, here's this one I grabbed, or this is just another Pentacles. This is the 9 of Pentacles. If you compare them to what they're wearing to the other members of the tarot, even among their own suit, you can see that they are relatively impoverished compared to others. All right. Rags, nice finery clothing. So it has to do with poverty. This is all upright. It has to do with, again, no, they're outside the church. Okay. They are isolated. It has to do with isolation, being left out in the cold. This is especially materially, I would say, they feel that way. But we're reversed. This is interesting because what it indicates to me is that these other things are missing. Ill health missing, poverty missing, worry missing, isolation missing, financial loss missing. Okay? Because you asked a specifically emotional question about how to get out of certain emotional patterns, what this actually indicates to me is not that these states are missing as much as their influence on the patterns is missing. Another way to say that would be that this card invites you, I think, to consider that the mind state that ill health put you in persists beyond the health issue. The mind state that poverty put you in persisted beyond the direct impoverishment. The mind state that isolation put you in persisted beyond the isolation. There was a moment in time where each of these things in your life were enormously present, and they changed your mind when you were in the present moment with them. And to some degree, they may still be present, but that's not the point. The point is that the mind place that you got to, when they were massive, even if they're still present, when they were massive problems, you're still there. They might still be present, but they're smaller. But in your head, there's still these gigantic things. Okay? It's like a kind of like a emotional PTSD or something, where it's like the thing was so big at one point, the isolation, the illness, the poverty, the feeling left out, the not really being a part of what you want to be a part of, I would even say the institutional acceptance, right? They're outside what looks to be an institution here. Institutional acceptance or not being accepted by institutions. All these things at one point were gigantic, right? And to some degree, you may still feel them, but they're not as big as they once were. The truly tragic thing about the 5 of Pentacles is that the door to this building is just around the corner. Poverty I don't know much about illness directly, admittedly, but people I've been very close to have been very ill. But I have never been super sick. So I can't speak to that, but I can speak to poverty and I can speak to isolation. What I know about poverty and isolation, in part, is that they become self-fulfilling prophecies. Okay? We'll stick with isolation for the moment. I was an actor in New York for a few years, not long ago. And part of the reason I stopped doing it was because I was tired of a certain feeling. And the feeling was no one around me is into what I'm into. Everyone's raving about some musical that I went and saw and thought was the dumbest thing and not entertaining, and I wanted to be gone in like 5 minutes. But I go and see Mark Rylance in a play about opera that, like, there's 300 empty seats when I'm there, and I have to go back and see it 3 more times because it's so captivating, it's special. And I want to talk to everybody about it, but nobody gives a shit. I'm the only one. And like one reviewer in the Times or something. Or what was more common, I go see some horror movie that's blowing my mind. And I want to talk to all my actor friends about it. And they're like, I didn't see that. And they're talking about Marvel. Not hating on Marvel. I'm just saying, I wasn't talking about Marvel. Unless it's Doctor Strange. That's the only Marvel I'm interested in. So I was tired of constantly feeling that. I was just tired of it. And I was like, maybe the fact that there aren't really people like me in this profession means that this profession isn't really for people like me. So I stopped. The thing about realizing that, though, was that it took me years of having that feeling before it even began to occur to me that maybe it just wasn't right. Because being isolated from a group in any fashion feeds on itself. You feel like people are treating you differently, so you start to act like people are treating you differently. And once you start to act like people are treating you differently, you are behaving differently to them. And because you're behaving differently to them, they begin to perceive you differently. And most of the time, they begin to perceive you as the very thing you thought they were perceiving you as in the first place, but they actually weren't. So you create the isolation that you resent. You create the image of yourself that they are responding to. When all you really needed to do was say, so what if they feel this way about me? Maybe I'm not their cup of tea. That doesn't have anything to do with me. That's the way out of isolation. Because the beautiful thing that happens in this world of ours is that when you do that, you show people who you really are. And we're all desperate to see who we really are. So then you end up making insanely close friends who know who you really are. And they maybe don't love every single thing about you, but the fact that they know who you really are, they know where you're going to stand all of the time because they know who you really are, is priceless. It's priceless. It's the bedrock of all good relationships, no matter if they're friendships, marriages, whatever. Knowing the other person, really knowing them, and them really knowing you is foundational and necessary. And it is the way out of isolation. But it's also tremendously difficult to allow yourself to do that. Some people die. I would say a lot of people die, having never been able to find the strength or security to do that. Like isolation, I know poverty does a similar thing. Again, I don't know about poor health, but I know that poverty stimulates the same sort of cycle where it's like, why am I not whatever enough to be okay financially? But here's the truth. It's rigged. It's rigged. Even more terribly, it is in the best interest of the powerful for you to feel incompetent. All of the powerful. So not only is it tremendously unlikely that you will die in a different economic strata than where you were born, and the only difference you will perceive is owed to inflation and rising quality of life and technology across the board. But when you boil all those things down into actual like quality of life and income adjusted, that you're pretty much going to leave the planet in the same place where you started. Not only is it tremendously unlikely that any other story here in the United States is going to be true for you, but also the system itself is designed to encourage it. It has nothing to do with you. Nothing. But every day, there's this messaging constantly dumped into our heads by Dave Ramsey and whatever the guy, the bald guy that screams a lot. Kramer, I think. It's dumped into our heads over and over and over and over and over again that we are the source of our financial problems. When the minimum wage in this country, I think adjusted by growth, should be like $20 an hour by now, $21 an hour, something like that. I looked the other day to see what it is in Tennessee, and it's $7.25 in 2021. That game is rigged, okay? It is rigged. So, it's hard, though, to come to see that and to cultivate a prosperity mindset in spite of your relative impoverishment. But that is the way out of poverty. It's not money. It's prosperity. It's taking care of what you have. It's celebrating what you have with the people you love. Celebrating what they have. Tweaking it, playing with it. Treating your space like it's not oppressive, like it is where you want to be. That's the way out of poverty. So these cyclical mindsets do have escape routes, but you can't really see the escape routes if the original impetus that instilled the mindset in you is looming so large in your consciousness that you can't see you can't see past it. You have to disrobe yourself of the idea that these things are still present. Because even though they were severely present at one time, they're not now. And even if they are, here's the hardest truth of all, I think. Even if they are, the door is still just around the corner. What I mean by that is, even if you are at your sickest, poorest, and most isolated, to be ill, to be poor, to be alone, that's all in here. It's all in there. It is not circumstantial. So the question, it's stimulated by circumstances, but there's always a choice. So the question then, how do you remove the patterns, right? If you keep falling into these emotional patterns, what is it that the tarot can tell you that might help you get out of those patterns? It seems to me that the answer that you're getting here is to recognize that the reason these patterns persist is not because of your circumstances as much as it is because of your daily decisions. Because of your inability to recognize that the original stimulus for these things is long gone, and also that even if it isn't long gone, it is healthier for you, it is more productive for you to treat it like it's gone. Yes, mindset as well, as Lisa says. I love truths like this. This is why my friends call me a metaphysical utilitarian, because I love truths like this. I love things that may not be true in our lives, but adopting the mindset as if they are true, believing that they are true, acting as if they are true, pushes us into a more positive place in the long run. The reason I like those sorts of things, the reason I like mindset shifting, is because it is magic in action. It's the most practical and most approachable form of magic I've found in my own personal life. All magic is, okay, personal. I'm not talking high magic. I'm talking low magic. Things that you are doing to get things from the universe. All that is, really, if you distill it all down, all magic is saying, this is the way things are. This is the way I wish they were. Here's me communicating that desire externally, in the hopes that that communication then brings about some change in my life. The pathway that you have to go through to do that is all mental. It's all mental. It's believing, coming to believe that your desires can have a direct impact on your reality. That's all magic is. What I'm talking about here in terms of like simple daily things to shift a mindset, even if the stimulus that prompted the negative mindset is still present, doing it in spite of those things, believing things are true that aren't true, maybe. The reason I'm all about that is because that is magic. What then happens when you do that is those positive changes that you're trying to get to, those positive mindsets, begin to occur because you believed that they would. Remove woo-woo from it entirely, and it still works. It still works. It still works. And the cost of it is uncomfortability. That's the cost. I think that's the cost. Yes. Magic is a vehicle to your own awareness and how to change it. Yeah. Think about this in terms of low and high magic. Again, to reiterate, I said it a bit earlier in the stream, but low magic, I want from the universe. I'm going to do ritual working to get from the universe. High magic, I'm in a place of listening to the universe. I want to hear. I want to receive. Low, high. Okay? Awareness, how to change it. All right? This is what is broken. I'm listening. I'm hearing. I'm feeling. I'm meditating. I'm journaling. I'm noticing. I'm trying to see myself kind of outside of myself. Again, I'm removing all woo-woo at the moment. I'll pump some in a minute. Even just basic meditation, right? What you're doing when you do that over and over and over again is you're learning to notice how your mind works. It's really what meditation is doing, chemically and neuropsychologically. You're learning how your mind works, how your thought patterns work, because you're observing them over and over and over again. What begins to happen when you start to meditate regularly is you begin to treat your mind with a sort of like, that's interesting kind of attitude, because these things keep occurring to you. It's like, I never realized, that is how that happens all the time in meditation. Every day, probably. At least one of those things occurs to you. So, listening, meditation, there's a bunch of different kinds of ritualistic things you can do to listen, but I prefer meditation. Some other would be like writing especially trance writing, automatic writing, just kind of closing your eyes and putting a pen to page and just go and don't judge and don't think and just go and just go and just go and set a 20-minute timer and put on music that stimulates you, maybe light some incense or some candles and just go and just go and just go. And then when that buzzer goes off, take a breath, flip through what you did. For some people, they'll see something in those pages that's like, whoa, where did that come from? So that's another form. Then you have just basic ritual work. I mean, a lot of ritual work is about invocation, which is essentially about, invoking certain elements in your life. But oftentimes those invocation rituals are just kind of like invoking a better static state, okay? Which feels like listening in the act of doing. So you have more nuanced ones like that, but there's a bunch of things you can look into. I would say tarot, doing self-readings. That's another one that I do to help me listen, okay? Increase the awareness. Then the other side, the low magic, is how do I change it, right? When I notice the pattern, how do I then execute a change on that pattern? There again, divination is a massive help, massive help. Journaling is the biggest help, in my opinion. Journaling is the biggest. I can't say this enough. Journaling changed my life more than anything else. I didn't journal until I was an adult. More than anything else in my entire life, any single act I have ever done, anything, journaling is the most helpful. Remove all woo-woo and it would still be the most helpful because I started doing it before I was woo-woo. All right? Journaling is, from my perspective, hands down, without question, the single pathway to growth that if you remove all others will still work. If you devote yourself to sitting down for 15 minutes a day and writing what that day was, 3 or 4 sentences and a date, that's all you need. That's it. But you have to do it. You have to do it every single day. And then you have to start, if you're just doing 3 or 4 lines on a normal piece of notebook paper in a spiral journal, 3 or 4 lines in 2021, then it becomes 2022. You go on that same page and you do 3 or 4 lines under 2021 and you see where you were a year ago. Time heals, but only if you're paying attention to the cumulative scope of it. And the only way to pay attention, from my perspective, is to have a chronicling that you are also referencing. So it's not just enough to journal. You also have to do it in such a way that you are noticing your previous entries and being surprised by them. If you're going back and reading your whole journal every day, this won't happen. But if you're doing it so that like every year you're seeing the entry that you put last year, this is the way I like doing it, over time, you start to understand that you are dealing with the same wolf in different clothing year after year after year. And all these problems that seem new and fresh and interesting are actually the same thing over and over and over again. And unfortunately, no one really can sit you down outside of a therapeutic setting. No like friend or anything, what's up, Johnny, can sit you down and say, this is what you're doing. Even people who know you can't, because they don't have the internal insight. Only you have that. And that's necessary to know what these patterns are. So you have to be talking to yourself, essentially, and you have to be listening to yourself. And for me, the way that is the most helpful is journaling. So journaling does it. That alone will solve 20% of your problems. And then, I'm a big advocate of divination, especially tarot. I'm a big advocate of reading a lot. Reading, once you know what your bullshit is, go get a book about other people who have dealt with that same bullshit. I can't tell you. I mean, I've probably read 7 full, academic psychological books on masculinity. I listen to podcasts about masculinity constantly. You know why? It's not because I have a, hard on for masculinity. It's because I have issues with it. I always have. It's a thing that I have to come to understand. It's not a thing that I feel is inherently in me. At least not in like the traditional way that a lot of men around me are masculine. I've never had access. I've never had a point of entry to that sort of thing. So I have to think a lot about one of my pillars of bullshit is I have to think a lot about masculinity, and I have to think a lot about what maleness means for me and what I can take from classical maleness that is actually helpful and what I need to get rid of that is not helpful and what I need to not judge myself for not having by virtue of my biology. I have to just let that shit go. But the only way I know what that shit is to go read about it. So go read books once you realize, I have a manic personality, or I have I just keep thinking that I am constantly sick. Like there's not a single person who's had a conversation with me in the last 5 years who has said, yeah, I'm not feeling great today. I've got X illness, that I didn't immediately respond and say, yeah, I've had that. That's a sign. Those things are signs. That's your subconscious mind talking to your conscious mind. Isn't that interesting? These are the sorts of things you notice when you're meditating. Isn't it interesting that I do that? If I do that, what might that mean about how I see myself? These things are signs. The beautiful thing about this guy right here, who I keep beside me because he's so right about everything. The beautiful thing about Jung's version of the subconscious, I think, is where Freud contended that the subconscious was a kind of hidden impulse center that we don't understand, but it's rooted in our feelings about our parents or some shit. Jung said, no, that's not necessary. That is true, but that's not the whole truth. There's a deeper truth that is more interesting. And that is that the subconscious is filled with its own denizens in the way that the conscious is filled with its own denizens. You wake up, you go to the bank, you take out money. These are all very conscious, deliberate actions. You're receiving inputs on the way to the bank. You're receiving inputs at the ATM machine. You're receiving an input when you put the money in your wallet. You're receiving an input when you start your car back up. You're receiving an input when you pull back into your driveway. You're receiving an input when you open your door. You're receiving an input when you sit down. Material, conscious input. Bam, 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 bam. What we don't realize is that when you got in your car, there was a faint smell on a sweater that you left in your back seat of your mother's house. For just a second, you thought about your mother. But then you started your car and you start driving. You don't normally listen to music in the car. But for whatever reason, you just got to turn on an oldie station, man. You just got to turn on music from when you were a kid and you just got to jam out. You get to the bank and there's 3 people in line and you're late to do something. But man, that song is on. That song that's like, God, I love that song. You turn it up, roll the window down a little bit, get to the ATM. My balance is $50 higher than I thought it was. That's cool. You get your money out. You get back home. You walk in. I'm going to make myself a nice dinner. We don't realize that the nice dinner is directly connected to the mother sweater. Because we're not tracking it the same way that we track the material inputs, the conscious inputs. We track those because they're right in front of our faces. But the smell, which stimulated a chain of events that you're not even aware the pathways of necessarily, you don't know that the reason that that song felt good to listen to in that moment is not because you love that song exclusively. It's because you were a teenager when that song was popular in your mother's home. And that particular year was a year that you really, really loved, all things considered. But you're not doing this working when you're thinking about it. You're not even thinking about it. You're just enjoying the song. And then maybe later you say, I had 50 extra bucks in my account, so I felt good. That might be true, but it's not the whole truth, So we don't think about these subconscious influences as being directly connected to our conscious reality, but they are. That's another area I would say that's a good area to start reading about. The ways in which, and I think a really fantastic entry point into this is Enneagram stuff, Enneagram. I'm not advocating that Enneagram stuff is entirely true. What I am saying is that it will get you thinking about your own bullshit. It'll get you thinking about your patterning, your stories, and the reason you tell yourself the stories you tell yourself. Because the horrible thing about it, I'm frustrated thinking about it because it's unequivocally true and none of us can run from it. Once you know the truth about yourself, you have two options, right? Embrace that truth and change. Deny that truth and stay the same. Those are the only options. So all of your work should be towards finding that truth. And when you find it, you know it. Because it ain't pretty. It is not pretty. I don't like, for instance, this Enneagram 4 thing in me, the envy that I have. I hate this envy. And I don't hate much of I hate feeling this way. I hate that at any given moment, I know exactly what would make me happy, but I won't let myself have it. It is so dumb to me. It is so stupid. There are so many people in this world who have no idea what they want. I know what I want every single moment of every single day. It is never a question. Never. The only time I lose when I want is when I start doing things that I don't want. And then I get lost in the weeds. But even then, I still have an idea of where I should go. Still. But I won't let myself have it. It's awful. It's awful. And it's a cycle. It's a snake eating its own tail. Over and over and over again. But now that I know it, there's only two options. Give myself what I want and need and be done. Work towards being done. Or don't and know that I could have changed it, but didn't. We're all going to be on that slab. I think about that every day. I really do. I keep this coin beside me to remind myself. You've seen this coin before, if you're a longtime viewer. One side of it says Memento Mori. That side. The other side, Memento Libre. These are Latin phrases. The way I like to translate them, for me personally, remember to live and remember to die. In a very deep, powerful way, remembering to live is necessary. And in a very deep, powerful way, remembering to die is necessary. This thing I did this week, buying the drum kit, saying goodbye to this old version of myself who I now had unequivocal truth, undeniable proof was no longer relevant or accurate or representative in any way of my present reality. That was me remembering to die. You have to remember to die. You have to remember to kill parts of yourself. And you have to do it consciously, willingly, and joyfully. Change is terrifying, man. Change is terrifying. I have zero patience for people who look down their noses at people who are legitimately trying to get better and talk to them like they're idiots and talk to them like, well, why don't you just stop doing that? Change is terrifying because you do not know what's on the other side of a change, a real one. You don't know. All you know is what's on the side that you're currently on. And every single one of you in this chat, watching these videos, has a whole web of people around you. You know, I probably have 20 people, let's say, who I would say, if I died today, there are 20 people on this planet who would really feel it because they really love me and I really love them. If I do something terrible, those same 20 people are going to feel the emotional repercussions of it. And depending on how terrible it is and the nature of the thing, they might feel other repercussions as well, financial repercussions, physical repercussions. I don't know. It depends on the thing. But the point is that there are 20 or so people on this planet in whose lives I am integrally woven, and they are integrally woven in mine. Therefore, extrapolate that out a bit. Part of the reason change is so terrifying is because you're not just considering what a new life would be like for you, you're considering how a new life would affect that web of people. And that can be paralyzing. That can debilitate you. That can be like, I really, really want to start doing drag, but I'm married and it's a cis relationship. And what does this mean about gender roles and how are they going? That's a very simple example, but we do this so much in our own minds. We have these conversations about how our changes might affect other people. And because we can see that it's very likely, or at least we believe that it's very likely, that those changes will negatively impact those people, we don't actually embrace the idea that we could change and just see what the hell happens. And a further truth is that we're doing it every day anyway. You're changing every day, no matter what. The question is, are you doing it consciously or not? Are you doing it moving toward consciously something that you want to be moving toward? Or are you letting the whims of the cruel material life, the basest form of reality, down here at the bottom, Malkuth, objects, material, all of this bullshit, are you letting that dictate what moves you? Because if that is what's dictating what's moving you, then you are screwed with a capital S. Because materialism means you are born into this world and you die from this world, and everything that happens in the middle is meaningless, that you are meaningless, and that there is no purpose to your life other than to proliferate your species. That is a one-way ticket to nihilism, which is a one-way ticket to despair, which is a one-way ticket to a life without meaning, purpose, happiness, or joy. It is wrong. It is flawed. It is the reason we are in the place we are. Above all others, in my opinion, it is the reason we put these people in power. It is the reason we so willingly give ourselves over to technocratic bullshit. It is the reason we have allowed social media platforms to algorithmically tyrannize us day in and day out. It's the reason even this is happening right now, because you were pointed to this by some algorithmic artificial intelligence that told you that I might have something insightful to say to you. It might be true, but it sure as hell isn't good that we gave a platform control to do that, control to infiltrate our thought space like that, just ceded them the territory in our reality, when for thousands of years in our history, the only people we gave that territory to were people that we trusted or who had been institutionally vetted. Now it's the Wild West up in this bitch, and anybody can jump into your thought space and change your mind like that. And it's so insidious you don't even know it's happening. You have no idea, because they've done it so well, they fine-tuned it so well that you think you're talking to yourself when you are not. There are a million people pulling your strings with these platforms and twisting you, and you're over there telling yourself, oh, it doesn't matter. They've got all my identity data. They've got all my crap anyway. It doesn't matter if I continue to use Facebook. Yeah, it really does, because you've given over the territory that is precious. No one should have that power, least of all faceless artificial intelligence algorithms designed by frustrated white dudes from suburbia. Those aren't people you should trust. Trust me. I'm not trustworthy, and I wasn't as well off as them. They're very not trustworthy, in my opinion. Lisa says life equals learning, death equals battle, challenging what we think we know, tearing to the bone, rebirth equals transformation, new self-perception, truth of now. Amen, Lisa. I'm gonna pull a card for you just to see what, Lisa, homie. Lisa, everybody needs to listen to Lisa, because Lisa is moving forward. That's Lisa's card for the day. Yes, motion, movement, change, transformation. Yes, Lisa, yes. I adore you, Lisa. Oh, God, I'm tired. I hope that was helpful. I really do. I love tarot. I think that it's just such a great, Lisa. Fantastic. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear it. Chariot came up for me the other day too, actually, in a very similar way. So I think we're probably in similar places. Hey, listen, I don't like the way the stream used to be, and I like this way a lot more. So, we're gonna do this for a while. We're gonna do tarot. We're just gonna ramble. We're gonna talk. We're gonna see what pops up esoterically. We're gonna talk about whatever it is we're feeling. I hope you want to tune in for that. If you don't, I get it. But look, I I'm here to be authentic from this point on, and I apologize for trying to figure out some content bullshit. It was stupid, it was wrong, but it came from a wounded part of me, and so I hope that is, that consoles you a little bit for if you felt like any of these shows were a waste of time in the past. I kind of agree with you. Let's not do it anymore. Thank you for saying that, Lisa. All right, everybody, have a great week. I may start doing these every day because hell, I could do this every day. I really could. I could do this all day, every day. I love you all. I hope you're having a good time. I hope your shadow work that's emerging is not too painful, although I hope it is a little painful, because it does need to be a little painful or you wouldn't pay attention to it, right? Pain focuses attention. So when you see pain, be glad. Be glad if you can. If you can give yourself the space to be glad that there is pain there. Pain is growth. Pain is change. Pain is good. Be well, everybody. All right. Cheers to you. I'm not gonna say stay weird because you know what? I don't think we are that weird. If I'm honest, I think all that shit is weird. I think we're doing okay. Stay yourselves. How about that? Stay yourselves and come back here and be yourselves with me next Friday. I can't wait to see you then. I can't wait to hear all about how your week's been. I love you all. All right. Have a great week, everybody. Bye.